Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Chall, and today Chall Chats Swindon Town. So this is all about the latest news that's been popping up today with Michael Flynn announced that he is set to exit imminently as Swindon Town manager, along with his assistant Wayne. We're here with Woody from Falls Rush Inn. Woody, how are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm a bit mixed emotions at the moment in terms of the latest news, but we'll go into that, I'm sure. But how are you?
I'm not too bad. It should be a very interesting video to discuss everything that's been happening. So, first of all, for those who haven't seen it, just in short, the statement from the club's website reads as follows: Swindon Town can confirm both first team manager Michael Flynn and assistant Wayne Hatswell have left the club with immediate effect as a result of amicable discussions. Michael and the owner have agreed terms upon which he will leave his role with immediate effect. So first of all, then let's just get straight into this and look on the pitch side. Obviously, we'll discuss the off the pitch side of Swindon Town a lot more in detail. But first of all, on the pitch, I mean, 4 points in the last 24 available from a results based situation. Does that play a part in the departure with 4 points in the last 24? Did you think it was going to get worse before it get better, or is this a
Um,
surprise in terms of the current form?
I think it's a massive contributory factor. All of it contributes, to be totally honest. Am I surprised that Flynn has gone? No. Am I upset about it? No. Am I happy about it? No. It's I think the problem is now is we reflect on this as Swindon fans. That almost exactly the same happened this time last year. So we reflect on it quite harshly, I guess. But the record does speak for itself, and I'm sure we'll go into it in a little bit in a minute. My general feelings on how much Flynn was responsible for that. I mean, I looked at some stats that obviously there's a lot of talk that when he had his new contract given back in November as well, at the beginning of November, and then pretty much the following day, he got knocked out of the FA Cup by Aldershot. And since then he's lost 8, drawn 2, and won 3. Which, bearing in mind that we've got to reflect on the reasons for Flynn's appointment. The reasons for Flynn's appointment was an experienced League Two manager who, and I said this on Falls Rush In, that this appointment was a bigger break for him as it was a big appointment for us. He needed a club that should in theory have a relatively decent budget to get out of this league, and a club that, and this is with the greatest respect to Newport and Walsall, but in my opinion, a club that is technically bigger than Walsall and Newport. So it was a big risk for us, really, as well as a good appointment, because the only thing he's got to rely on is he knows the league well. But it's a results-driven business, and regardless of fans' opinions on the owner, and that includes my own, if the points aren't coming in, the owner's only going to look at one thing. If the workers aren't working, the workers go. So it's whether that's right or wrong, we can sit here and talk about that all day, But it's primarily, if I was an owner of a club and I think I'm doing the right things by the club, I'm going. The manager's only got us 9 points since we've given. 11 points since we've given him a new contract. So it's not a surprising dismissal if that's what it is, but I think we can say it's one of those mutually agreed things.
Yeah, 100%. When you look at the way he's set up, when you look at the tactics that Michael Flynn produced at Swindon Town, if we stay with on the pitch and just ignore the off the pitch stuff for a second, do you think that the tactics and the way he set out the team, did you think it was right for the Swindon Town philosophy and the ethos of the football club as a whole in terms of its legacy and its history? Or do you think that Flynn's tactics, looking back on reflection now he's gone, maybe didn't suit the ethos and the DNA of the football club and how that club's been built upon?
I think that, and this is probably part of the problem, is where is the ethos and the philosophy. If you ask most Swindon fans, will always be promote young players, sell them on, and promote young players so they're good enough to sell on. We like Swindon typically do like attacking possession football, and then obviously we go back to Scott Lindsay, promoted. He wanted fast attacking football. It didn't come. Um, and Flynn had that opportunity here, and I think his biggest problem tactically, and I'm only a mere grassroots coach, so what do I know? But his biggest problem tactically for me was the failure to adapt to what he had around him. Now, we look at the style of football that we play, or he wanted to play, is suited to a 3-5-2. But the problem, and that is the predominant dominant tactic he used, right? In terms of, but the problem is we didn't have we had square pegs going into round holes across the pitch. We didn't have players that were, in key positions on the field, such as sweeper, such as left wing back, right wing back. We didn't have the right players to do that. And funny enough, we spoke just before the Crew game on Falls Rush In, and I said that I don't understand why he's not making these changes, not going back to a back four where we've got the personnel for a back four.
Yeah.
So it just didn't. I think, is it stubbornness? Maybe it's a bit of stubbornness that he wants. Was he trying to send a message? I don't know. Only he can answer those questions. But there seemed to be quite a big question mark around some of the decisions he started to make, and some of the, I guess, formations, tactics. I mean, players are players at the end of the day. They cross over that line. They've still got to perform. But there were things for me. Again, I'm measly grassroots coach. Could see that he just wasn't changing, and I don't really understand why. Was it deeper down than that? Was it that the players that are effective in those positions didn't want to play for him, or he didn't like them? They weren't the flavour of the week. So it's very difficult to say where he exactly started to go wrong. Obviously, we're going to talk about off the pitch, but it's a combination of factors. But even when you see the control over players like Charlie Austin, who everybody in League Two, when Charlie Austin came back to Swindon, everybody in League Two, nobody at that stage was going, "Oh my God, Charlie Austin, he's past it." Nobody was going that. Everybody saw him score straight away against Grimsby, almost a year ago to the day, and and people started to think, "Oh, Swindon have got an actual striker on their hands." And I think I've actually seen him play a striker role once in the last year. He's kind of been dropping deep and things like that, which is good for an experience, but it's not what we needed him there to do. So it's just small things like that I would expect a manager to go, "That's not right. That's not right." And I think, again, talking on the tactical side as well, I think one person that's particularly getting away with this, and this is related to the management, is Hatswell, who was obviously his assistant, who's gone as well, and also was offered a new contract back in November. He was responsible for us defensively, in my eyes. So if this is somebody that Flynn has trusted to be his number two, we were leaking goals all over the pitch for these very reasons that I believe I've just listed. And if I'm seeing it, and I know many other fans are seeing it, it just makes it quite difficult to understand why he wasn't seeing it and why he wasn't changing it. So lack of adaptability was probably his downfall.
Yeah, and to be fair, even as a Rovers fan, when I'm watching the highlights every night on Saturdays, I can see similar patterns and similar mistakes that seem to be happening, but nothing seemed to have been changed. So even I could see it, and I'm sure other fans could see it as well. Obviously, we know Michael Flynn's got the experience of League Two. We know that he's going to go and get a job somewhere else at some point in the future. We know that Wayne will probably get a job in the future at some point as the number two or part of the coaching staff somewhere else as well. From a Swindon Town perspective, we know that Gavin will probably be the caretaker manager till the end of the season. Very contradicting statements on different social sites. But it sounds like, from what the owners said, it sounds like Gavin will be the caretaker manager going forward for the rest of the season. And then it sounds like it'll be a restart in the summer again. If it is indeed a restart in the summer and you're not looking to appoint a permanent manager before the end of the season, who would you say, with the situation, which we'll get onto in a moment about the ownership and the off-the-pitch stuff with Swindon Town, who do you think realistically would be a name that would be a realistic appointment going forward next season?
It's going to take up the next 5 months of podcasts, isn't it? Of Swindon Town-based podcasts. Who's the next Swindon Town manager going to be? Unfortunately, it is massively related to off the pitch. Unfortunately, in terms of who we could potentially get in. I've seen names before when the rumours were going around about Flynn at the weekend. We saw names like Gareth Ainsworth going in there, and I'm never the fools guys take the piss out of me, or sorry, take the mick out of me all the time in terms of, I'm a big Luke Garrard fan from Boreham Wood. Is it about time that we maybe gave him his punt at the go? It's one of those. We've tried Jody Morris, so we've tried the well-known professional. Obviously we're not going to get another DiCanio-esque, which I wouldn't want anyway, because it will bankrupt us even further than we're already bankrupted. But I think me and another one of the fools, when we were on our way to our game yesterday, we were saying, like, if Gareth Ainsworth takes that cut, which I can't imagine it being a huge cut given his previous job, I almost feel like he would probably be a realistic, maybe affordable target. Can I think of anyone else outside of that? There's the guy that was at Cheltenham. Well, yeah, Gavin Gunning. This is a trying month for him, isn't it? The first couple of months will be the first one to try. He had a very good record, but he had no pressure attached to him. He had, and he could afford to do things like a blinking 2-3-5 tactic or whatever it was he played, and you can do that when you've got nothing to play for. And you could argue that Swindon's season is pretty much over now. We're not. I don't think we're poor enough to go down, but we're not good enough to go up. So unless we really do something in the next 16 days of the transfer window, but if it is kind of a probation for him, and he does well to the end of the season, then why not? Why not give him the role? But if we're talking that somebody wants to come in, I think it's going to need to be an appointment with success, which is why the names like Gareth Ainsworth and that are probably chucking around, because he did a good job with Wickham. QPR was maybe one step too far for him at that stage. I think QPR is one of those clubs that's bigger than a lot of people believe, and the expectations are a lot higher than people think. But it's and then there's obviously Mike Duff at Cheltenham as well. It was at Cheltenham. Sorry, is he still at Cheltenham? No, he's not at Cheltenham anymore, is he? But so there's names, local, knows the area, probably knows Swindon well enough. He's probably beaten us enough times. But so there's names like that probably aren't too unrealistic, but it really depends on what our board situation is in the summer. But one thing's for sure, it needs to be early. Similar to Flynn, the good thing about the Flynn's appointment was we made it in May. We made it ready to give them a pre-season. And if we don't do that again, then we'll be in the same rut. We'll have a group of players who just won't know who they're playing for.
Yeah, 100%. From the outside looking in, I generally have a gut feeling it's going to end up being Gavin on a permanent basis, just because of the fact that with the off-pitch situation as it is at the moment, I just see it going one way at the moment, on a neutral perspective. Right then, off the pitch, it's one of the biggest mystery. Well, it's not really the biggest mystery, is it? It's pretty much out there in the open at the moment. And I've been looking all over socials this morning, and in the past 48 hours, it seems like a lot of Swindon fans are very much ready to protest. They're ready to try and make their voices heard. I've seen multiple accounts trying to get a protest sorted for the next game. It's at the minute. Clem's got a lot to answer for in a friendly way of saying it. Obviously, I don't want to come across as disrespectful or anything like that, but Clem's got a lot to answer for in terms of what's gone on. Why has it come to this decision with Michael Flynn at that point, especially when you in the contract situation in November with that contract offer till 2026 for him and his assistant. When you've got Lewis Ward, who's set to go to Charlton now on a permanent basis, and you're losing more players, you might still sign a couple of players, but you're about to lose a few more players. It's looking like a very, very bleak situation, especially for the rest of this season, but maybe going forward as well. So, in your opinion, just to kind of summarize it in total, what does Clem and the board of directors have to answer for in terms of the general basics of what's happened this season?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the same question a lot of people are asking is where's the money gone? You know, we operated at a profit last season, and you know it seems that we've got a smaller wage budget. It seems that we've not spent that much money on recruitment when you really think about it, and I guess a lot of it, it's difficult for me to say all the time because, like I say, I've been inside Swindon myself, and also I'd like to think I know quite a bit about how a football club is run, but the it's we seem to have a sponsor every single week, brand new sponsor every single week. I mean, I went past Clem was back in the country, started to notice that things more sponsors, I guess, started to pop up around the around the ground and stuff. So he's obviously gone, why aren't we showing this stuff, and why aren't we using our sponsors properly? But yeah, in terms of the question, obviously the big earmarks are around the beginning of the season. You're saying it's a competitive budget, all of these kind of buzzwords. Last season we said at the end that we were going to learn from our mistakes, and all of that. I guess buzzwords is to buy season tickets. They wanted people to buy season tickets, of course they did. And most owners will probably say that anyway, and that's not, but it's the going from pulling pints and driving around in a bus with your best friends and all of that and becoming every fan's best friend, to now literally nothing. There's no confidence. There's supposed to be a fans forum in a week or so, and there's no confidence that he's actually going to be here, or he's actually going to be on it, or whether he's actually going to go ahead with it. And there's even the theories to say that he sacked Flynn and is now going to use that as an excuse to do it. So it's as an excuse to postpone. So it's just one of those that he's just got to answer what is going on, what is the current state, what is the future. Can we have some honesty when it comes to financials? That's kind of the main thing we're looking for as fans, really. And I think every fan has a right to know that. That's not necessarily being overly transparent either. Do you know what I mean? That's more looking at that's not to do with any promises of memorandums of understandings or anything like that. That is just what you should be telling your customers, and fans are customers at the end of the day. And the fact that it feels so disjointed as well. What's going on? What is the CEO doing? What's his relationship with the trust? And things like that. So it's just where's the money gone, and what's the promises for next season, and let's just have some honesty. We know he wants to come in, we know he wants to redevelop the stadium and all this kind of stuff, which seems to have just taken a complete back burner now. So where's the money gone for that? It's all of these different, and it all derives that big question on a PowerPoint presentation that says where's the money gone. So it's very worrying. Am I worried to the extreme of what we were under Lee Power? Probably not. I don't think I think in terms of how we're being run, it's probably quite similar. But you hear all of these stories coming out, and I won't obviously spread any rumors on this platform, but you hear of all these stories coming out about the staff and people doing too many jobs and all of this kind of stuff, and it seems very cost cutty. And is it cost cutty because it's the business is struggling? Swindon Town as a business is struggling, or is it cost cutting to help with the playing budget? Let's be honest, that's probably not the case, because the differences in salaries are going to be vast. So yeah, and what's his immediate plans? I mean, he came out September, I think it was, and said that the club's not for sale, and but then he said at the same time, a couple of months later, that he's taking investors, and he's talking to potential investors and all that. So it's just honesty. That's just what we want, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the final question then is, and there's multiple Swindon fans that want the owner out. They've had enough. We spoke about potential protests in the next game. I will say, playing devil's advocate, shall we say, from a media perspective, in your opinion, what does the current owner need to do to get the fans back on side? Like I said, we know that some fans have had enough already. They want the owner out. But if we're speaking from a level head at the moment, what does the owner need to do if the business is struggling and there's not much budget left to bring in a certain quality of player, a certain quality of manager, budget restraints, etc.? What does the owner need to do on and off the pitch to bring the fans back, or at least start to bring the fans back and show that they are making changes despite any struggles that they're currently working with? What's the current owner need to do?
If I'm honest, I think the bridges have already fallen. I think we'll always have a loyal fan base at Swindon. We'll always have that kind of core, I don't know, 7,000 that will be there every week. So and I think this is probably working to his advantage, because we all just like football. Some people, there's a lot of people in the fan base that just want to ignore it, just want to get on with it.
Right.
And will support, and I don't hold anything against those people. I probably was one once upon a time. But what he needs to do is, results will only reflect that. He needs to invest heavily somehow, and if he hasn't got the money, he needs to sell up and make it known that he's selling up. Like, rather than all these hidden messages and things like that, he actually needs to make it known he's selling up, because that will please a lot of the fan base. As long as we know what's going on, I don't believe for a second that there won't be anybody out there not interested, sorry, in Swindon Town. The problem we've got is what is attached to Swindon Town. That's the problem we've got. I mean, even to take over as owner, you've got to take over one company that owns another company that's the company that owns Swindon Town. So it's quite a complicated procedure, and I know it's like that for a lot of takeovers. But I think the best way now is let's just have 5 years of just being run by an oil tycoon. It'll be lovely. But it's kind of, I think it's now, he either needs to, he ain't going to be able to invest in the next 16 days into somehow vastly turning around this season. I mean, we could be sat here in 5 months' time, and Gav Gunning's been given a massive budget, and all of a sudden has got us out of League Two. But we all know that's pretty unrealistic. But yeah, I think what he will need to do to get fans on show is to start putting actions into his words. Because I can't see it. We look at that first season he came in. Ghana had a week before the season, and we only had 11 registered players or whatever it was. And then we've actioned things like McCurdy and all of that kind of stuff. We need similar to that again, but without it looking so disorganized and feeling like we've had to do it really quickly. He needs to. I wouldn't hold it necessarily against him, even though I'm one of those that want him out. If he came out and said, "Look, we know this season's a write-off, but we're going to put absolutely every resource we can. We're going to look for investors." But the problem is I won't believe a single word he says. And I think that's what the majority of the fan base do, is that they don't really believe what he says, which is why all this protest talk is coming up now. And obviously, is it Reading that did it at the weekend? It's those kind of things do kind of have a domino effect when one club see it. Now I'm a bit against on the pitch protests but just because I know that the EFL penalties attached to it can be quite severe, and I just wonder, do we actually want that right now? But it's whether we have to answer with our feet in some ways. But like I say, you've got that core 7,000 who probably turn a blind eye to what's going on behind the scenes. And this is by no means a criticism to those at all. But I think the only way, in the same way with any manager that comes in, the only way they're going to get the backing is if we start to see results or start to see something change. This squad, and this is where I take the pressure off Clem a little bit, because yes, we've had injury problems, but this squad went undefeated until the end of September. And yes, we've lost Jake Young and Dan Kemp, but who are massive losses. But if Clem wants the fans back, we need something to replace them.
Yeah.
We need to. We've got the goalkeeper in. We made some signings last week. Are they good signings? Only time will tell. But we need. He needs a statement signing. If he wants to win us over temporarily whilst Gav Gunning's in charge, we need a statement signing. And how many statement signings do you get in January? But I just don't think he's got the money, if I'm brutally honest. I think he's come in, saved the club, so to speak. And unfortunately, that's all he did was stop the club from going into administration at that point. So I think his best thing to do now is just to admit, I want to sell the club. I'm trying to sell the club, and this is how much I want to sell it for. And I don't believe for a second there's nobody out there that wouldn't be interested in this club as long as they can see all of the skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of the situation and what the owner might need to do to get the fans back and to get them interested again. Woody, thank you very much for coming on the show. Obviously, we'll link the channel Fools Rushing in the description down below, and thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for listening as well. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, and for now, I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now.